Hello guys, Kimshester here. In this video we are going over 5 of the best unique arcane weapons in Elden Ring. I realized there are too many weapons and items in the game that I would love to review and break down without necessarily having to make a build video around them, and that's why I'm starting this new series. Arcane is a very interesting attribute in the game, since it is the only one that can influence status build up like sleep, bleed, poison, etc. One thing to mention before we start, this list is not in any particular order, but I will leave some of my personal favorites to the very end. So without any further delay, let's jump right in. The first item on our list is Morgott's Cursed Sword. It's a curved great sword that deals only physical damage with a passive blood loss build-up. Fully upgraded, the weapon has a D-scaling in both strength and arcane, and B-scaling in dexterity. Although investing in dexterity over the arcane attribute will increase the weapon AR by a small margin, you will likely see better results investing in arcane anyway to bolster the weapon's hemorrhage status. Morgott's Cursed Sword has a quite powerful H4. You dash forward to quickly close distance to your enemy and perform a sweep attack with a blood flame explosion follow-up that can damage multiple enemies around your character. You can use the weapon skill again to perform a second devastating follow-up attack. Not only that the weapon skill causes significant amount of fire damage that can trigger a blood loss effect on your enemy, it can easily stagger most enemies in 2 or 3 attacks. The weapon skill is much faster now than it was initially, thanks to a buff in patch 1.04. It also has a short recovery time and sufficient hyper armor, allowing you to perform the weapon skill quickly and without interruption. Items and incantations that boost fire damage like Flame Grant Me Strength will also increase this weapon skill damage. Essential items that you should consider while using this weapon: the White Mask Helm and Lord of Blood's Exaltation for 10% and 20% extra attack power respectively when there is a blood loss in the vicinity. Shard of Alexander for 15% increased attack power to all weapons skills. These 3 items are great options not just for this weapon but for the other weapons on this list as well. Other good talismans to consider are Fire Scorpion Charm to increase fire damage by 12% and Ritual Sword Talisman to boost all your damage by 10% while your HP is full. I suggest you also use Flame Shrouding Character in the Wondrous Physic Flask to increase the weapon skill fire damage. Alongside, use Stone Barb Character to boost the poise damage the weapon skill deals. I think it's one of the most underrated weapons in the game, and certainly one that deserves a spot on this list. You can obtain this weapon after defeating Morgott, the Omen King, and trade his remembrance with Enya at the Round Table Hold. The second item on our list is Eleonora's Poleblade. It falls under the Twin Blade category and has innate blood loss build-up that can benefit from the arcane scaling on the weapon. The weapon itself deals both physical and fire damage. Fully upgraded, it has E scaling in strength, D in arcane, and C in dexterity. The Eleonora's Poleblade has a unique R2 moveset that deals multiple successive attacks, which you can charge up to cause your character to spin more times to increase the number of attacks and the damage it delivers. The weapon's H4 is quite flashy. You leap forward and spin around, dealing multiple attacks to your target. You can also use the weapon skill again to quickly withdraw backward, slashing your enemy while doing so. This weapon skill will not only enable you to cause fast blood loss build-up on your target, but also deals a staggering amount of poise damage that is worth mentioning. The Eleonora's Poleblade has an obvious characteristic of dealing rapid attacks in quick succession, whether from the charged R2 moveset or the weapon skill, and because of that we can take advantage of some of the items that synergizes with successive attacks like Millicent's Prosthesis and Rotten Winged Sword Insignia to reach high levels of attack power while using this weapon. I suggest you pair the Eleonora's Poleblade with another Twin Blade. I used the Godskin Peeler with the Arcane Affinity and the Seppuku H4. Power Stance Twin Blades are extremely powerful since your jump attacks can deal quick but devastating successive attacks and can easily trigger blood loss on your target. Use Thorny Character in the Wondrous Physic Flask. It increases the weapon attack power relative to the number of successive attacks it deals with, similar to the 2 talismans we mentioned earlier, alongside either Flame Shrouding Character or Stone Barb Character. I think it's a great and fun weapon with a very stylish moveset. However, some of these movesets can be difficult to land, especially in PvP scenarios where they can be predictable. To obtain this weapon, you have to defeat Eleonora, Violet Bloody Finger NPC, at the second Church of Marika over here on the map. Rivers of Blood is the third item on our list, and one that hardly requires much introduction. Rivers of Blood is a katana type weapon that deals both physical and fire damage. Only when the weapon is fully upgraded can it reach P scaling in Dexterity, with E scaling in Strength and D in Arcane. However, the weapon seems to scale much better with the Arcane investment over Dexterity, despite the higher scaling the weapon shows in favor of Dexterity. In conclusion, you are likely better off investing in Arcane over Dexterity when using Rivers of Blood, not only for the higher attack power, but also since the blood loss build-up scales only with the Arcane attribute. The Rivers of Blood is recognized for its H4, Corpse Piler, a set of fast frontal cone slashes that cause massive blood loss build-up and damage. This weapon skill is very similar to the double slash H4, but with a much better range that enables you to reach and damage enemies with this weapon easily. Overall, it's a powerful arcane weapon with potent and easy to land H4, making it one of the best weapons in Elden Ring and a strong candidate for any arcane build in the game. You have to defeat Bloody Finger Okina near the Church of Repose to obtain this weapon. The Marais Executioner's Sword is one of the best arcane weapons in Elden Ring and one of my personal favorites. It deals split physical and magic damage and scales primarily with the Strength attribute and less with Arcane. It has P scaling in Strength, E in Dexterity, and D in Arcane when fully upgraded. The weapon's H4, A-Shade's Dancing Blade, is the most powerful single target damage dealing H4 in Elden Ring. It flings the sword forward in a corkscrew motion, continuously dealing damage while violently spinning. After that, the weapon returns to your hand, delivering a final slash that knocks back any normal-sized enemy or boss. This weapon synergizes extremely well with items that increase attack power relative to the number of successive attacks it deals, like Thorny Cracked Tear, allowing you to reach higher levels of weapon damage unlike any other in the game. You can obtain this weapon after defeating Elmer of the Briar at the Shaded Castle over here on the map. Our talisman's options for this weapon will not be so much different from the ones we already mentioned earlier for Eleonora's Poleblade. One thing to mention, the Marais weapon is the only weapon on our list that does not come with a passive blood loss build-up. So in order to trigger items like Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman, use any weapon with the Seppuku H4 before any charging encounter. For the Wondrous Physic Flask, use Thorny Cracked Tear, and since we can charge the A-Shade's Dancing Blade H4 to increase its damage, use Spiked Cracked Tear to increase the damage of charged attacks by 15%. The Marais weapon skill can be sometimes difficult to land, especially if you're trying to charge it up to get the most damage out of it. So a good alternative is to use a shield with the Shield Crash H4. But before I get into that, I want to thank my friend Matt Walker for providing me with this idea. So the shield we are using is the Spiked Palisade shield. It's a great shield that comes with a passive blood loss build-up, and you can set the Arcane affinity on the shield, but a better option is to use the Cold affinity to trigger Frostbite on your target, increasing all the damage they take by 20% for 30 seconds. We use the Shield Crash skill to charge forward into enemies while maintaining a full guard. The Shield Crash can knock down any normal-sized enemy or boss, giving us enough time to quickly two-hand and use the Marais weapon skill. Even against big enemies immune to the knockdown effect, it's still a good idea to quickly apply any status effect you choose on your shield, and a reliable way to trigger the White Mask Helm and Lord of Blood's Exaltation Talisman effects. It's important to mention that the Shield Crash synergizes with items like Thorny Cracked Tear, similar to the Marais weapon, allow you to deal immense damage with this H4. I think it's a great idea, however, you can't use the Marais weapon skill while having the shield on, so make sure you are two-handing the Marais weapon when you are ready to use its H4. Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear is a great spear type weapon. It comes with a passive blood loss build-up and deals physical and fire damage. When fully upgraded, the weapon has D scaling with dexterity, C scaling in both arcane and strength. The weapon movesets are not unique, but like most great spears in the game, they can easily break enemies' boys much easier than other weapon types. This weapon stands out in its Asha 4, Bloodboon Ritual, easily one of the best and most powerful in Elden Ring. It deals an insane amount of fire damage in a wide area that can affect enemies through walls and cause massive blood loss build-up to all enemies around you, making this one, if not the best AoE damage dealing weapon in the entire game. The Asha 4 also buffs the spear with the Blood Flame, causing the weapon to deal more fire damage and increase the blood loss build-up with each swing. It's a powerful option to consider for any strength arcane build. Incantations and items that increase fire damage like Flame Grant Me Strength, Flame Shrouding Character, and Fire Scorpion Charm can help this weapon reach its full potential. Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear can be obtained by trading Remembrance of the Bloodlord with Enya as a round table hold. The Marais Executioner's Sword and Mohgwyn's Sacred Spear are two of the best arcane weapons in Elden Ring, and if you are looking for an arcane build that takes advantage of these two powerful weapons, please check my Dancing Blade build. This concludes our list of 5 of the best unique arcane weapons in Elden Ring. I'm aware there are other great arcane weapons that deserve to be on this list, but I feel the ones I already mentioned are those that stand out with a strong character and left their mark in Elden Ring. If you enjoyed this type of content, please let me know in the comment section. I highly value your feedback and opinion, so please don't hesitate to share. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.